Hey everyone, Colton here, and welcome to Comics Alliance. So, films like Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, they introduce the audience to the idea of multiple Spider-Man throughout the Marvel Multiverse. But what if I told you that in the comics there's a version of Peter Parker's Spider-Man that isn't actually Peter Parker at all? He may look like Peter Parker, but his mind is actually being controlled by one of his oldest foes, Dr. Otto Octavius, aka Doc Ock.
Hello, Peter.
You see, when on the verge of death, Doc Ock was able to transfer his consciousness into the body of Spider-Man, and thus Spider-Man's consciousness into the body of Doc Ock. The body of Doc Ock then dies, which means the consciousness of Peter Parker dies. Doc Ock then goes on to live his life as Spider-Man, or as he calls himself, the Superior Spider-Man. Now, while I doubt we'll be seeing something like this pan out in any of the films, I do think it's possible that we could see a Spider-Man game adopt this story. So real quick, let's talk about the Spider-Man game. When Insomniac Games released the first Spider-Man video game since 2011's Edge of Time, great game by the way, highly recommend playing that, I'm not sure that we as fans, or I certainly wasn't, prepared for this new game to give us one of the most comic accurate yet fresh takes on the wall crawler since Raimi's Spider-Man 2, both of which include Doc Ock. So in the game, Doc Ock says that he is suffering from a degenerative muscle disease, leaving his brain intact but taking away the motor functions of his body.
The worst part is it only affects the muscles. The mind continues to work, but it can no longer do.
The game has an ending scene. We get to see Otto sitting in prison, staring ominously at the camera, probably planning his next evil scheme.
So I wanted to take this time to explain my evil plan.
When he succeeds in transferring his mind into Peter Parker's body, Spider-Man's body, the transfer allows Ock to access all of Peter's memories for a brief moment. He experiences all of the life lessons that molded Peter Parker into the hero he is, into the Spider-Man he is. So in this moment, Ock has like this major change of heart, and he decides that he is going to be a hero. He sets out to be an even better Spider-Man than Peter was, a superior Spider-Man.
He said it! He said it!
Now this comic ran for about a year and a half starting in 2013, and while fans like myself were initially turned off by Peter Parker being killed off in the main Marvel timeline, Universe 616, it ended up being a pretty decent story. One of my favorite things about the comic was the parallels it drew between Peter Parker and Otto Octavius, a parallel that Peter actually shares with a lot of his villains, being a character who has a brilliant mind like a lot of his mentors, but then deciding what they are going to do with that power because, like Uncle Ben said,
with great power comes great responsibility.
But a key difference between Otto Octavius and Peter Parker is how they were raised. Peter was raised by a loving aunt and uncle who taught him about kindness and decency and responsibility, like I just mentioned. Doc Ock, on the other hand, he was raised by an abusive father, and some iterations of the character have him, of course, being controlled by his mechanical arms, which also greatly sway his judgment and make him do the bad things that he does. Anyway, this comic saw Spider-Man, when being possessed by Doc Ock, Spider-Man became far more violent.
See you, chump. What the hell?
And as for Otto's time as Peter Parker specifically, things got weird. I mean, at first he tries to continue Peter's relationship with Mary Jane, and then it gets even weirder because we learn that Peter's subconscious has survived the mind swap and is still lingering in the depths of his mind, and he is observing everything.
Gross.
Now, let's talk about Venom. In the Superior Spider-Man comic, we see Doc Ock as Spider-Man steal the Venom symbiote from Agent Venom. Venom's current host was then Flash Thompson, Peter Parker's high school bully, not Eddie Brock. And Ock thought that he could control the symbiote better than Flash, and definitely better than Peter did when he was bonded with the symbiote, and he wanted to prove himself, so he stole the symbiote. But he ended up being wrong, and the Venom symbiote began to consume Ock and just completely take over, and if it weren't for the lingering consciousness of Peter Parker stepping in and saving him, he would have been completely consumed. We then see Ock have another run-in with another classic Spidey villain, the Green Goblin. Now, when Norman pieces together that it is actually Otto Octavius's consciousness in the body of Peter Parker, he becomes a little jealous that he wasn't the one to kill Spider-Man.
Nobody kills you but me.
So after all of that goes down, Doc Ock realizes that his way of policing, his way of being Spider-Man, it is just ineffective. So he finally understands that it is Peter's experiences and willpower that made him the superior Spider-Man. And then when Doc Ock learns that there is still a piece of Peter Parker's consciousness within him, he sacrifices himself to bring Peter back. So back to the game. Insomniac's Spider-Man universe is really unique, even with how close it stays to its original source material. We have a Spider-Man with multiple years under his belt who's already fought foes like Rhino, Electro, Scorpion, but he has yet to encounter iconic foes like Venom or the Green Goblin. And another interesting thing about this universe is that it is one of the few universes where we actually get to see Peter Parker and Miles Morales work together. You see, in the comics, Miles comes from Earth 1610, also known as the Ultimate Comics universe. In this universe, Peter died at the hands of the Green Goblin, and then Miles took up the mantle of Spider-Man. Now, after the events of Secret Wars, we see the 616 universe and the Ultimates universe combine, making it to where Peter Parker and Miles Morales as Spider-Man can now work together. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, I think that the first game clearly set up an Otto Octavius return, an Otto Octavius who may be ready to jump out of his decaying body. But I don't think that Insomniac is going to do it beat for beat. They're probably going to have a totally different take on the Superior Spider-Man. So let's go over what we know as far as the sequel goes. The sequel to Insomniac's Spider-Man is set to release in 2023, and it will include Peter and Miles teaming up to fight against some of Spidey's deadliest foes, Kraven the Hunter and Venom. We know from the first game that the symbiote's current host is Harry Osborn.
I love you, son.
From this post-credit scene in the first game, we know that the symbiote is supposed to help Harry fight off a rare disease. So, what if Doc Ock figures out a way to swap minds with Spider-Man like he did in the comics, and then goes on to steal the symbiote from a Harry Osborn Venom so that he can use that symbiote for good, so he can use it to create perhaps medication that can prevent these kinds of diseases from killing anyone else. Remember, prior to Ock going bad, he was in the business of making robotic appendages for amputees. So imagine a scenario where Miles Spider-Man is having to fight his mentor who is actually possessed by the consciousness of Doc Ock. Or we could see Ock swap bodies with Miles and have Peter have to face off against the body of his pupil, who, keep in mind, has even more powers than Spider-Man, including electricity and invisibility. So let me know, do you think that we'll see one of the sequels to Insomniac's Spider-Man game take up the story of Superior Spider-Man? Let me know down in the comments below, and you can also feel free to @ me on Twitter. If you're new here, please do feel free to subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified every time we upload a new video. Join the Alliance, we'd love to have you. My name's Colton, I'll see you next time, bye.